Hello, Indiana. My name is Rachel, and I'm an artist living in Philadelphia. I am primarily a printmaker. Printmaking refers to any art making process that involves transferring an image from one surface, which is called the matrix, onto another surface. And the image that gets transferred from the matrix is the print. And what I really love about printmaking is that it allows you to make multiples, so your work can be shared more widely. So historically, a very democratic medium. Today we are going to be talking specifically about linoleum block printing. Linoleum is a more contemporary alternative to woodblock printing, which, as you may know, involves having a block of wood, carving it, inking it up, and running it through a press or printing it by hand. Linoleum is much softer than wood, so it is easier to carve. It's great for beginners, and it's very inexpensive. I'm going to be showing you specifically how to make a repeating pattern on a piece of paper from 2 linoleum blocks, so 2 different colors. And I did this during my time at Spruce, and for a while I didn't really know what to do with the pattern sheet that I had. I just really liked it as it was, but I was like, okay, I need to breathe new life into this. So I later in the year incorporated it into a collage. And in the past I've used linoleum blocks to create patterns for book covers. So it's like the same process. You start out printing on a large sheet of paper and then cutting it down and using it as a book cover. And other things you can do with your patterned paper are, using it for wallpaper. You can also apply this printing technique to textiles. So you can print on sheets, any bedding. Yeah, it's, there's a lot you can do. Yeah, why don't we go over the materials? Of course, we're going to be using linoleum blocks. This is what they look like. Very lightweight. These are relatively small. They're about 3 by 4. You can get them at any art supply store, Artist and Craftsman, Blick, at the IUP school supply store. Made many trips there while I was in Indiana. So yes, our blocks. Then we have our carving set. I have one by this brand Abig or Abig. They're a German company, and it's basically a handle and then a few different they're referred to as gouges. So I have 4 here. So then basically what you do is the gouges are very easy to remove from the handle, like so, and then you just put them back in. In addition to that, I like to use an X-Acto knife. Typically carving sets come with a knife tool, but I find that an X-Acto is a little sharper, a little more precise, so I like to have this on hand. We have a brayer, which is what we use to roll out the ink. We have our ink. 2 kinds of pencils, a regular one and a darker one, so like a darker, heavier lead, and we'll see where that comes in as we go along. A few kinds of paper. Tracing paper, which you can get in a roll like this, or a big sheet, or a pad. Newsprint, and just any regular kind of paper from a sketch pad is good. Piece of plastic, wooden kitchen spoon, tape, a ruler. That's everything, so why don't we get started? So the first step for making a pattern from this 3 by 4 block is to trace it. So you trace the outline of it, and then you fill in that space with the pattern that you want to repeat. So this is where the tracing paper comes in. So I'm going to first tape my drawing down onto the table so it's nice and stable. And then I'm going to have a piece of tracing paper, which is also taped, and put that right on top so everything doesn't move. And now I'm going to use my extra dark pencil and just go over this drawing. And in the spirit of printmaking, we're going to repeat that onto another piece of tracing paper. So same thing. This is because we are using 2 blocks, and Yes, it will all make sense as we go. So I'm just gonna do that again. We're gonna do a little more tracing here. Well, not really tracing, more like rubbing, which is where the darkness of the pencil really comes in. So we're gonna take our block, take one of our drawings that we did on tracing paper, put it face down on the block. You know, make sure it lines up how you want. That looks like, you know, not perfect, but it's fine. And now we're going to use the same pencil and just go over those lines, and it will give us the impression of the drawing on the block. Hooray! There it is. And now we're going to do that again. Same process to the other block. Okay, so this is where the X-Acto knife comes in. So basically we're going to be carving away everything except the part of the block that we want to ink and ultimately print. So we have two blocks here because we're using two colors, orange and black. I'm just going to start with the ink that will be, with the block that will be printed in black. So let's see here. I would like for this flower to be black, and this star to be black, and this part of the flower over here to be black. So I'm going to be carving away everything on this block except the parts that I want to be black. So we can just grab our carving tool and start gouging away, but what I like to do is use my X-Acto knife to go over the lines, because once you create a line in the block, that creates a stopping point for the gouge. So it allows your shapes to be more precise and ultimately more true to your drawing. Alright, so I'm going to show you what I mean here. So I'm going to start by going over the outline of this flower with my X-Acto knife. So what we're doing is I'm following the line, and I'm not pressing like crazy hard, but you know, just enough to make an impression in the block, and I'm turning as I go because that makes it easy, or easier. Alright, just gonna keep going along this line here. So I'm not sure if you can totally see on my horrible phone camera, but I promise you that I am making lines on the line. So we're going to keep going around that way. Just turn as you go. Okay, so this flower has been outlined with the blade. So I'm going to show you what I mean now by what I mean by the stopping point. So I'm going to assess, so I'm going to start by carving out this top triangle part of my block. And the gouge that I have in my whole handle right now is pretty small. So I'm going to swipe it out for a bigger gouge. This is wider, so it'll take out more linoleum. So I'm going to carve... They always say, I mean, and this is something that is said for a reason, to not carve towards yourself, because then you can end up going into your hand and, you know, it's not fun. So I'm going to do my best to stick to that. So I'm going to start here, holding the tool like so, thumb firmly on one side, index finger lined up with the gouge, holding the block firmly with my other hand, and I'm just going to go. Wiggle it around, makes it a little easier. Bam! Okay, so it stopped pretty easily at this line that I made with the X-Acto. I'm going to just do that a few more times. See that? You can see there's sort of like a crisp line here, which I love to see. And to get this part, I'm turning the block, again carving away from myself. Once you're carving, you know, it just becomes pretty intuitive, I think, in my experience. Alright, so now we have this strip of block above the flower. Yes, what did I say? I wanted this star to be black. Okay, so I'm gonna carve out this whole area. Just again, away from myself. Before I forget, I'm going to do the same thing that I did for this flower. So I want to preserve this flower. I'd like to preserve this part and this star. So I'm going to do that same technique of going over them with my X-Acto blade. And then once I do that, I will continue to carve out the rest of the block. Yeah, and I find this technique is not only good for, you know, staying true to your drawing, but, you know, if you got these little like fine line situations, it just helps keep your lines and your shapes cleaner. Now for this delicate little star part, I'm going to switch my gouge to the smallest one. This is called a V gouge because of the V shape. So I'm gonna start, it's kind of perfect for the star shape because you can start right where the you know, ends meet each other and just carve out those lines. So yeah, we're seeing this point of the star is still raised, safely carved everything around it, haven't carved into it. Let's hope that that continues to be the case. Okay, my star is safe, and now I'm gonna switch out the gouge because I'm gonna start carving out bigger areas once again. Why don't I start here and just go for it? So just gonna keep doing this until the only raised parts of the block are this flower, this star, and this part of the flower, because that is what I want to print. So I'm going to keep going until those three shapes are all that remains raised. Okay, so here is my block that I want to print in black, and to make sure everything is carved correctly and there's nothing else that needs to be removed, I'm going to ink it up. There usually are other spots that are raised, but we'll see what happens. So this is where the plastic comes in. This is going to be what we're rolling our ink out onto. And now I have my ink, and I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit. Ooh, that looks old, but it'll be fine. And now I'm going to take my brayer, dab it in the ink, get some on there, and roll it out. Okay, that's a lot, but that's why we're doing this. So you don't want it to be like, you know, you don't want it to be like the consistency of thick paint. You want it rolled out nice and evenly. You just want to go in the same direction. Okay, so that looks pretty inked up, and now we're just gonna ink up the block. So same idea, same direction. Oh, so satisfying, oh my gosh. Gonna keep doing that. Okay. So even if you have little moments on your block that get inked, that doesn't mean that they will necessarily print, because they may not be quite as raised as these other parts that we have going on here. But we're gonna do a test print anyway. So we're gonna get it nice and inky. Especially because we're going to be printing by hand, so we don't have the pressure of a press. So when you're printing by hand, you want to use more ink than you would with a press. I'm going to go ahead and say that that looks good. So this is where our newsprint comes in, just a nice test paper. And what we're going to do, not worry about placement right now, just going to place our paper onto the block. Okay, and then we are going to take our wooden spoon and use the flat side and just rub the paper onto the inked block. And you'll see it coming through the back of the paper, especially because this paper is so thin. So we're just gonna do this for a little bit. Make sure it gets even ink coverage in the spots where we want it. And now the reveal. Ta-da! Okay, pretty cool. So as you can see, the print comes out as the mirror image of what's on the block, so it's the opposite. Yeah, I'd say obviously over here we can use a little more ink, but as we keep printing, the block will just gradually be getting more inked up, and these little moments will be getting filled in. I'm seeing these spots here, which typically I love, you know, like evidence of the hand, but just to be able to show you how to get rid of these moments if you don't want them, I'm just going to do that right now. What's nice is that the ink over here kind of serves as a guide of what to take away. So I'm just going to go back in here with my gouge, take it out. So before I start printing on this beautiful piece of drawing paper, I'm going to measure out and mark the placement of where I want to put the blocks. So again, our blocks are 3 by 4. So I'm going to take my ruler and my pencil and measure out a grid composed of 3 by 4 rectangles. So I'm going to measure 3 inches across, because our blocks are 3 inches wide. So we're at 3 inches here. And then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do 4 inches because that is the length of the block. Okay, and we have our grid. Okay, so I'm going to ink up my block again. Definitely got dry sitting there. Oops. Okay, so that is sufficiently inked, I hope. And now I'm going to take my paper and line up this block with the first rectangle as best as I can. So this is our, registration system. Oh boy, it's always a little stressful, but it's fine. I'm just gonna, put it down. Yes, I think that is good. And now I'm going to hold the paper under the block, flip it over. Where's my spoon? Get my spoon and print. Okay, let's see. Oh, cool. It's in the rectangle. That's what I like to see. So now I'm just going to do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more times. Alright, so I just inked up my block again, and I'm just going to repeat that same process, lining it up as best as I can with this second rectangle. Beautiful. Press down, flip, print. Alright, so I've got my last one. Okay, pretty cool to see them all lined up like that. So while this dries, I'm going to wash off my brayer, and I'm going to carve my second block, which I will be printing in orange. So it's helpful for me to see them side by side like this, because the black indicates what I will now be carving away on this block. So I will be completely getting rid of this flower, this star, and this part of this flower, and leaving these 3 elements, and those will be printed in orange. Okay, so this was my black block, and now I've carved my orange block. This will be printed in orange. So I'm going to do the same thing that we did before. I'm going to get a sheet of plastic, my orange ink, just a little dab like that, or a little, line. Going to tap our brayer in the ink and roll it out. Ooh, that's a little watery. That's okay. Just gonna go and get a nice, not super thick band, but nice and even. Okay, which is which? Oh God. This was the black one. So, printing up the orange, or inking up the orange one now. Oh, I love this ink. Okay, so now we're going to do a test like we did before. I'm not going to attempt to register it right now, just going to make sure everything that I want to print is printing. Get my spoon. Okay, yes, beautiful. All right, so now I'm going to print it on our paper. Just going to do the same thing. Line it up as best as you can with your drawn rectangles. It's always a little scarier when you got the second layer, but it will be okay. Okay. And now just going to repeat same step. Get your hand under the block, under the paper. Flip. Get your spoon and print. Okay, so that's a little wonky, but maybe the next one will be better. It's possible that it moved while I was printing. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, I'm just gonna do that 7 more times. All right, so I'm printing the last of the last over here. And then that'll be it for our pattern. Oh, cool. Okay, this one came out closest to how I was hoping they would all come out. But yeah, so cool. Yeah, I really like this. So here is our 2-layer repeat linoleum block pattern. Okay everyone, well that wraps up this video on how to create a repeat pattern from a linoleum block. Thank you so much to the Pennsylvania Rural Art Alliance, the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts, and of course Spruce Arts for this opportunity for all of us to stay connected and learn from each other. Hopefully when the world's a little less scary, we can all get together, maybe go to Al Patty's, get a couple steaks, some candied jalapenos. It'll be great. All right, well, thank you so much. Take care.